So this week is going to be uncovering patterns, unlocking things that you didn't even know were in your head about so many different areas of your life. We're going to even look at designing that 12 months connected to your aligned version of you. And then we're going to reverse engineer this thing. We're going to teach you about habits. We're going to teach you about habit hacks. We're going to give you the science behind it. And by the end of this, today, week 2, I want you to really have unlocked, rebuilt, and got aligned with what you really want to experience in your life.
Welcome to the Mindset by Design podcast with your host and NLP expert, Andy Murphy, where you will learn the tips, tricks, and strategies he teaches his world-class clients to give you the skills to dominate any business.
What's going on, Mindset by Design crew, and welcome to episode 416. Hope you're amazing as always. Life is treating you beautiful. I mean it. I'm still in the UK hanging out right now, visiting family. I haven't been here in quite a while, and one of the places I'm from, I should say, I've been away 21 years, so I get a little confused. I'm from planet Earth, people asking. Sometimes I get a little bit claustrophobic about being on Earth, so we got to go and play in different places, right? Different dimensions. And you know what? The UK, I haven't done the UK summer in, it's got to be like 10 years or something like that. Maybe over. But it's really beaming with sun right now. It's beautiful outside. And one thing about the UK in summer, everybody's happy. Everybody's happy. And it's not often that the UK is happy, right? Because most of the year it's kind of dull, kind of grey, kind of raining. And I think it just wears on people. I don't know if you're from a gloomy climate, but some people love it, Some people love that cold and briskness, and some people hate the sun. But you know what? There's a reason I left 21 years ago and went to Australia originally. Because I chased that sun. I can't get enough of it. Absolutely love it. It makes me very, very happy. And that's why we're spending time in the UK right now, visiting family. And it's nice to see them. Yeah, nice to see them happy too. It makes a change. We've got sick people, around in the family, and that's why I'm spending much time as I can here this summer. And do you know what? They brought me to what I wanted to talk about in today's episode, because I got massive good feedback from the small, tiny little clip I put out last week about, the strategies around NLP and anchoring techniques. And anchoring is an amazing tool. It's the biggest thing that changed my life. So if you haven't listened to that previous episode, do it because it's awesome. That's 415. And it's just a tiny little glimpse. It's a 30-minute training of a 2-hour training of a 12-week training. And so that made me think, people really liked it, because usually what do? I usually take other people's awesome clips and knowledge and I break it down and I give my interpretation of it and I link it to business and performance. And that's awesome. It's awesome. But people don't really know my stuff. Do you know what I mean? But if we're on episode 416, but if we go to episode 300 and to 200, I put a lot of trainings in. Episode 200 to 100 and below that, it was a massive amount of interviews. And as I say, I've got a load of interviews ready to go. I'm just traveling and bouncing around, so I haven't got the video editor to chop them up for me yet. But they're on the way, and they're really, really cool. You're gonna love them. But today's episode, I really wanted to talk about states. And what the heck is a state? Well, we have different versions of it, right? A peak state, a negative state, or what I call a specific state. And to give you a little understanding of what I do is I create these, or used to create these in world champion athletes. And that's where I really developed this skill. And to be able to take someone who's in a negative state or a losing state, that means their neurological network is wired together in a negative pattern. It means the filter system in their brain, the beliefs, the attitudes, the language, the values are all wired towards a very specific negative outcome, the loss, or a specific moment, or a specific thought, or a specific word that was said, or an image, right? So that's where trauma can be created inside of this state. And the thing about the brain is, if we are not wiring it the correct way, right? The old saying, if it doesn't fire together, it doesn't wire together. Or if it does fire together, it does wire together. So when we're in that type of state, or that version of us, or that negative state, what happens is the dominant emotion inside of us is that negativity. It could be stress, anger, guilt, frustration, whatever it is. And the mind, or the brain, I should say, works like a muscle. So it pumps and builds and replicates or repeats that pattern. So if we don't break or interrupt it and start rewiring it real fast, then what happens is, truthfully, the muscle gets bigger, thicker, and stronger, and it becomes really difficult to create that change. But that's what I got really well known for across the world, is being able to take anybody from any environment. It could be high-level business, it could be trading, it could be IPO management, it could be getting a business started, or you get stuck, or a high performer who's dipped in performance and wants to bounce back, right? Because they want to step into expansion, blue oceans, and they need that reboot, right? That's what I do, right? And what that means is that I believe I'm one of the best in the world at this. And it comes from thousands and thousands and thousands of clients. It comes from working with the best people in the world in every type of industry. And it just comes through wisdom of knowing what to do and when to do it, right? And this is the protocols, the systems, and techniques. Anyway, the reason I say that to you is, as a high performer, as an entrepreneur, what happens is it's very hard to keep the high level consistency constantly, right? That day-to-day pressure is very, very intense. And what that means is we all dip sometimes. And when we dip, what I call a success dip, that means we change, or the version of us, or the brain pattern, like I've just been talking about. So that means we can't have creative ideas, we can't be consistent, and we can get stuck, right? So we can't enter these flow states. So being able to understand how the neurology works, the brain works, and using neuro-linguistic program as a foundation, what I was able to do is introduce the neuroscience, the behavioral psychology, the persuasion, right? And all of these things to create ultra high performance states. I do it for teams, I do it for management, I do it for founders, and I do it for people who are under intense pressure to perform. If you've got to perform now and you're not, then I'm the man. That's what I'm known for, right? I'll sort you out, whether you're doing $1,000 deal or $100 million deal. I can really make sure that you're going to achieve it. And so what I wanted to introduce today, following on the back of that little NLP anchoring, and by the way, NLP anchoring is so in-depth, and I just gave a tiny little taste of it last week, and it's the same thing this week. I just want to give you a tiny little taste of how I develop states, right? You can actually go to the 8figurethinker.com or andymurphy.online, and you can buy a whole 8-Figure Thinker University around this stuff, where we go so deep into it. There's even certifications in it. It's built around, it's amazing. It really is that course. But today, what it is it's a little clip from another system called the Top 1% Performer that I did a few years ago. And that was a live 12 weeks that I took people through a massive journey and just changed entrepreneurs' lives left, right, and center. And it was beautiful. It was a beautiful experience. These days, what I do is reboot and expand, but it's similar techniques. It's just more refined to this specific skill, right? So whether I take people through a day, 2 days, 90 days, or 12 months with me, it's an absolute game changer for people. It changes lives. And hey, that's why I'm here. What else are we doing, right? We got to change lives. And so that's what today's episode's about. So hopefully you absolutely love it. Speaking of loving it, make sure that you are heading over to andymurphy.online and getting what? Well, just go and get your free book. It's badass. Go and get your what? Total Mind Control Handbook. Just go and get it. It's free. It's worth $27, but it's really in depth. We cover lots about states, and we go into the brain waves and how to reset your nervous system to have nervous system regulation and all things like that. It's cool. It's badass, and I'm actually going to be writing a book and changing it so it's not going to be there for much longer. So go and grab that. What else can you get from andymurphy.online? Well, like I said, you can go and check out 8-Figure Thinker University. It's a hell of a journey, man. It's a hell of a journey that, it's like the backbone to any entrepreneurial journey, because we get taught all the skill sets, how to market, how to do this, but you're not going to build your business to the level that you want if your brain isn't patterned the correct way. If you don't know how to step into flow, if you don't know how, when the pressure is so intense, if you haven't got these skills, then it's not going to work out the way you want it to, plain and simple. So you can get both of those things from andymurphy.online. You can also go over there and you might be one of the few. You know, you can click on the tab Work With Me. You can fill an application in. And if you're at 6 figures and want to move to 7 or high 6 figures or want to add another 100 grand, or you're at 7 figures or 8 figures and you want to go to 9 or whatever it is, I'm the man. So go and apply and let's have a chat and see if it's the right fit for you. I bring on like one person a month. That's it, as I don't have the bandwidth. But what we are doing is, I say, these days, these 2 days, these 90 days. So I'm going to be able to take more of those things on. And if you're contacted, by the way, by a gentleman called Jonathan, hey, be nice to him. He's my concierge guy. He's coming to have a little chat to see if he needs some support. So anyway, what else? If you got a podcast and ever thought about bringing me on or wanted to invite me on, hey, I could be open. Right now. I'm taking on, some interviews. And also, what else? Well, you might have an event and want me to speak there. Then head over to andymurphy.online. You can check me on stage. I've got a full hour-and-a-half presentation even on there. But go to live and you will see all about it. So that's it. Should we jump in? Let's jump in. I know you're going to love this. It's probably about 30 minutes again. So get your notepad and pen. Get your cup of tea. I'm in the UK, you got to have a cup of tea. Hang out and enjoy. And I will see you at the end of the show.
So hopefully everything started to make sense from last week. I know I throw a lot of things at you if this is the first time you've been around me, but hey, that's like 1% basics, right? So what we want to make sure is that today we are building on that. And that's the key thing today. We're building on that. And I did a lot of talking last week, right? I did a lot of talking. This week, it's all about you. So this week is going to be uncovering patterns, unlocking things that you didn't even know were in your head about so many different areas of your life. We're going to even look at designing that 12 months connected to your aligned version of you. And then we're going to reverse engineer this thing. We're going to teach you about habits. We're going to teach you about habit hacks. We're going to give you the science behind it. And by the end of this, today, week 2, I want you to really have unlocked, rebuilt, and got aligned with what you really want to experience in your life. And and also what you want by the end of the 12 weeks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into this, everybody. So I'm going to share my screen, and then we are going to jump in to this week's slides. So here we are, everyone. Week 2, Habit Hacks 101 and Future Design. Okay, so I'll explain what we're going to do in this week because I'm pumped, because week 2 means we've got, well, quite a few more weeks, right? So this is what we're going to cover. It's going to be fun. It's going to be awesome. I'm even going to get my binaural beats out of my ears, first time today. So I'm going to put them over there. The world goes quiet. Interesting. So hopefully you've been practicing yours, but we're going to go through and look at some metrics in a second to see if you have been practicing. So first thing we're going to do is that review. Then we're going to move to 5 ways to change your state. Because the biggest thing we were teaching last week was what? The interrupt, and you got it, state change. So then we're going to look at habits. Then we're going to look at the 21 or 90-day habit line. Then we're going to go into your brains, and you're going to start to pull out all of these awesome things. First thing, we're going to look at so many different areas of your life around what is on autopilot. Remember, this is the unconscious part of your brain, and we're lighting up to find out what is automatically installed in there to see if we need to adjust it, delete it, or update it. Then what we're doing is we are going to connect to your purpose for your passion. So there's moments in your life where you've been so in alignment and it's like there's been nothing happened, and you got this aha moment, and then suddenly the passion is inside of you and you're going for it. That's what we want. Then we're going to look at goals. Then we're going to look at your 12 months, and then we're going to look at the roadblocks. Today, it's going to be a lot of stuff. So I want you to make sure you have your notepad and pen, because we begin. But we're going to begin in this week with a review and your metrics. So I want you, as always with this isn't about my growth, although it's always about my growth. This is about you. This is about your growth. So I want you to be honest. I want you to be open. No one else is seeing these things unless you show them. So you be honest. So last week, what did we have? We have our 5 active installations that everyone was going to practice. Okay. So everybody downloaded the binaural beats app, hopefully. Interrupts, state changes, install, which was practicing the visuals, something for your growth, and the 5-finger control. Now, if you didn't do them all, it doesn't matter. It's okay. There's no beating up or bad or right or wrong. It's just we learn and build. So let's jump in. So the metrics review from last week. Well, first one, active installation. Okay, so did you move the needle forwards? That's what we're trying to do. Did you move the needle forwards towards your 12-week mission? So if we were to be honest about those scores, what could you do very simply to increase the performance by even 1%? Maybe that's using the binaural beats more. Maybe that is setting timers on your calendar or your phone to check in for state changing. Maybe that's you building routines in, because guess what one of the things was? Yeah, you had free access to the 1% performer, world-class performer audio, so you could have played with that, right? So you know what you could do over these, which is going to increase at 1%. And I'm just going to leave that on the screen for 30 seconds. So what could you do? Download the beats, great, but could you use them? Were you interrupting? Were you state changing? Were you installing visually? Were you playing with the images? Were you growing? Were you playing with the 5 fingers? I don't know. You do. So just a few more seconds, and you can always go back over this. I just want you to be open and honest and see what we can increase, right? Because we're building muscle. We're pumping. So we want to make sure that we know what's a pump. Okay, so that's the end of the metrics. We're going to do these each week. So guess what? And you don't know if I'm going to call you out one week. So you've got to make sure that you're on point. Okay, so quick one, and it is a quick one. because I want to get into the juice of this week, which is you, right? So one of the things that I found with state changing is there's not necessarily always one way that works 100% of the time. So what we have to do is to learn all of the different sections, or these 5 ways, and then start to go, oh, I can do this way, this way, this way, to put yourself in the right state. Now, remembering what the state is, it's an alter ego, or a version of you, or a peak state, okay? So what we want to make sure is to understand what was the driver. It's the emotion, right? So whatever your biggest emotion is, makes you perform that way, makes you think that way, has beliefs that way, and feels that way. So what we want to do is change the emotion, we change who we are. So that's called a driver, okay? So one way to do that is through physiology, right? So when we feel down, we tend to be most aware of ourselves, but without noticing that our body is doing your physical. I'm just going to move your pictures, everybody. Okay, so can you think of, okay, we just moving back up. Screens are moving everywhere. That's what happens when you do it live, right? So physiology. So when we're down, we tend to be most aware of our thoughts without noticing what our body is actually doing. But the physical state reflects your mental state, okay? So change one and you'll automatically change the other. For example, change your posture and change your breathing, you will automatically feel calmer. So a very simple way to look at your physiology, and we're not going to go too deep into this, but even looking at activating the fight or flight response or not, just through our physiology. You can practice this. See where my chest is? It's down, right? 1% difference. We push it up and we think about the future. Think about that next task you're going to do. Drop your chest. Now think about that next task you're going to do. Confident is the same way? You're not confident the same way. Think about this. This physiology is activating the fight or flight response. We're ready to go, whoa, 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 what are we doing? This, that's confidence. And we can talk more and more about physiology. But just by changing that physiology, just that tiny little thing, changes the emotion inside of us. So what we've got to start paying attention to is this, right? So is our physiology like this and all bunched up? If it is like that and you think you're going to be confident, you're not. Plain and simple, okay? So the next one, what we're going to look at is sheer willpower is not going to give you what you want, right? So what we want to do here is if you get stuck in an issue or you have a problem, your brain starts locking on to what that problem is or maybe one solution. Here, what we want to get used to is something called future pacing, okay? Future pacing. Basically, playing with ideas of what possibilities are in the future. If we do that, then what happens is we literally can check options and feel what's right for us, feel what's wrong for us. Say we brought that person into our world. Oof, I can already feel the dynamics are going to be going to cause problems with that person. Okay, take them out, put that person in. Even if it's that simple, what you're going to find is that your brain will automatically start to solve those problems, okay? So what I want you to do is to play around with this future thinking. And just because you can't find the solution here, well, like we know by now, the solution's out there. We just need to put our mind on it, right? Horse with blinkers, or we're looking at everything. We want to look at everything to solve problems. That then will give you a different feeling, which will then change your state. Think of a time. Well, we all have these times, right? We've all had moments in our life where we kicked ass, where we kick some serious ass. You might be today, you might not be today. It's okay. But we all have moments in our life where we did perform at our highest level. What I want you to do, if you're ever low or you just need to change that state and level up, is if you take your notepad and pen, or just your brain, but notepad and pen's better, and wrote out and listed 3-4 moments in your life where you were really on fire, and you wrote them out and you start to go into a little bit of detail of each one, a little bit of story, what that does is it associates you into that memory, right? Because we're in that memory. Then guess what lights up? Yeah, the nervous system, chemicals, feelings, all of that good stuff. So that then changes our feeling, which does what? Drives us to a different state, right? So the next one is model. Again, not catwalk stuff. This is modeling. It's simply copying on a very deep level, okay? So something we're going to do in the later weeks is we're going to select very key people in business and life, and even James Bond. And we're going to look at their characteristics, their belief systems, how they think, feel, and act. And we're going to start to try them on. And then what we're going to do is develop our own version, our own kick-ass superhero, okay? Superhero is a cheesy word, so I won't use it again. But that's what we're doing, okay? So modeling, what I want you to do is starting to look at people, places, or things, or people in your life, people on movies, people in books, people on TV, people in your imagination. Something that Napoleon Hill used to do, Think and Grow Rich. Everywhere, Think and Grow Rich. So it's something that he talks about is something called a mastermind alliance, okay? And he had this actually in his imagination, but he taught people to collectively get together and actually be a physical mastermind alliance and a imaginary mastermind alliance. But either one, what you're doing is you're looking at the world through other people's eyes to get a different perception of what you're going through, to get different answers. Explain more about that in the weeks to come, but play through people's eyes. That's modeling. And the final couple is use your body as if. So I'll go against the grain, of course, but act as if. Act as if is not something, it's a fine line to understanding what that really means. If we acted as if we were confident and walked into a room that were people we don't know, now you'll probably fool most people for a while. But when we go deep into a conversation, or you're really getting into it with somebody and it's an important conversation, if you're acting as if you're confident, the tonality, your physiology, everything won't be on point. But if you be as if that version of you who walks into that room is completely confident, because we programmed our brain the right way. We've got our nervous system used to it the right way. We played with meeting these types of people or this scenario 100 times. When you walk into that room, it just is. And that's the same thing with sales calls. I remember 18 years ago now, right? When I first started sales in Sydney in Australia. And I came back after my first tour of a client and I didn't close. And I said to my manager, my mentor, I said to him, nobody could have closed that. And he went, are you sure? And I went, I tried everything, did everything. No one could have closed that. He's like, okay. That tour you said was your first one. It should have felt like it was your 100th one. That's the difference. And he was right. He was absolutely right. The other thing is anchors, okay? Anchors to change your state. Now, we're going to go into anchors either week 3 or 4, depending on how I feel. But what this means is I want you to understand that you can have negative and positive anchors or triggers, right? So a positive trigger could be it could be Arnold Schwarzenegger, one of his movies, saying something, right? That's a trigger, that's an anchor. It's like, oh, I'm fired up. Could be somebody from your childhood who said something to you, and somebody says something like that or in a similar tonality, it freaks us out, right? So when we can start to understand that everything around us is an anchor, we're going to set up something called environmental anchoring in one of the weeks. We will get to that, okay? So that's my 5 ways to change your state. Like it? Good. So go and play with those, okay? Remember, you can go back over this. So now we get into the juice. Habits. And how to automate these habits. Habits, well, let's just get into it. So more than 40% of the actions people perform are habits. Now, that's a study from Duke University 2006. Modern studies are showing it's up to like 90% that were automated, okay? So if you want to live a richer, more meaningful life, well, habits make a lot of sense, right? Because habits are the unconscious automatic patterns of how we think, feel, and act about our lives, okay? So habits are a really good thing. But the challenge with habits are a good thing, but it's the bad habits that are the problem, not the good habits, because that's who we are. So we want to become consciously aware of everything that's playing in our head, because then guess what? You got it. We can then create changes. So what a habit is, or a definition of a habit, is anything we do without conscious thoughts. Okay, so that's shaking someone's hand. If I put my knuckles out, what happens? Everyone's goes, oh, I'm not supposed to do knuckles. Right. It's a habit. It's the same way you wake up in the morning and make a cup of coffee. It's the same habit as you go to sleep at night. How you think about the future, money, your past, success, everything that you want, autopilot. So habits free up time and energy. So if we start to focus on how to build the visuals and how to build these habits, then we're going to free that energy up. This is why also we have great ideas on the way when we're walking or doing other actions or in the shower or about to go to sleep. It's because our conscious brain gets switched off, so the automatic patterns can come through. So old habits is the problem. New habits are good. So take a look at this for a second. I like this model, but I got some issues with this model. Now, this is classical psychology teaches the 3 R's for a habit formation. Is it correct? Yeah, it's correct, but it's to a point. It's like a microscope, right? If we're watching like that, or we zooming in, there's a big difference. So I'll explain this because it's something it doesn't teach you in this model, but you'll see this everywhere. So number 1, the reminder, right? Or the anchor or the trigger. Something that sets the pattern off. Love it, right? So the reminder is the cue or trigger that starts the habit. Number 2, they talk about the action you take. And for example, you drive through whatever, the traffic lights, right? Or you stop at the red lights. So the reward, then the benefit you gain from doing the habit. For example, you get closer to your destination. If the reward is positive, then you'll have a desire to repeat the action the next time a reminder pops up. Eventually, this repetition will form a new habit. Do you see any issues with that? Maybe, maybe not. Okay, let me explain why there's a few issues with this model. Well, for a start, we like the first one, right? That's the anchor. Then we go to number 2, which is the routine, the unconscious strategy. But what they're not taking into account is us, right? Not taking into account us. And they're not taking into account that a reward, well, they're not understanding dopamine. Because dopamine's produced, or the reward on a novelty, it doesn't have to be a positive experience. It can be a negative or positive experience. Dopamine's produced with novelty. So what happens with this is it's pain or pleasure. Plain and simple. It's pain or pleasure at that point. So what happens with their sequence is that the reward is positive. We'll repeat the habit. You know, if we like it, we'll keep doing it. Well, habits don't work like that. Because what's happening is, if it's new, dopamine, the chemical, gets triggered, which means that starts to form the pattern or behavior. That behavior could be a drug addiction, it could be self-sabotage, it could be escapism, it could be hurting yourself or somebody. But if there is a dopamine spike and you're coming from the wrong state or wrong emotion, what happens is we're going to make the wrong decisions and the wrong choice. Doesn't matter if it's a reward or not. The pattern is still going to happen. The other thing that we've got to look at is it's reinforced consciously or unconsciously. So when it comes to the reward, what am I teaching you? To interrupt the pattern, right? So if we can start to understand that if we're interrupting the pattern before it becomes a reward, the chemicals aren't going to start flooding into our brains to do that negative thing, okay? So just so you know, there's more advancements to what is going on that they're taught in psychology and science and all the rest of it, right? I think outside the box. But this is what we're teaching you. This is 2.0, right? So this is where it all begins, okay? So hopefully you've got your notepad and pen. And what we're just going to do before we jump into this, because this goes on now, right? We're going to do a little exercise now, and then we go into, some more habit forming, the 21-day lie, and then we move into really breaking down the next 12 months.
Yo, crew, just interrupting there. This next little bit, it's only a short one, very simple, but it's guided meditation. It's actually, I call it guided meditation, but it's not, because we're using hypnotic language patterns in NLP. So it's a closed eye process, right, or visual. So trance work, whatever you want to call it, but don't be driving, basically. Don't be driving. Don't be doing something like you're on a forklift truck, or you're doing something that might take your focus, or you might drift off. So instead of doing that, I want you to stay awake and do this in a quiet space. That's it. And then we're going to wrap this episode up. So if you want to do the hypnosis, then find yourself a quiet space. Oh, and put headphones in.
So just before we do this, why don't everybody just close their eyes, and let's just take 30 seconds, big deep breath, because we want you to be able to go deeper inside now. So just take a big deep breath, or those 3 big deep breaths for me. That's it. And just allow all your focus just to move on to your breath, as you just tune into the sound of my voice, which just allows you now to let go of whatever doesn't serve you. So breathe deep now and let the future just disappear. Breathe deep now and allow yourself to slow down, so you can just go deeper inside. And by the end of this session today, you're going to find that you have radically changed how you see the world, yourself, and unlock things that you didn't even know were possible. By the end of this week, you're going to have such clarity around where you're supposed to go, who you're supposed to be, that you'll look back on this moment and know it came to you so simple, because you were connected now to yourself. So take a big deep breath, open your eyes, and let's go and play. Okay, beautiful. So this now is, we are getting consciously aware of what negative patterns are coming up, okay? And we'll just start to give you a little taste of what we're going to do today, okay? So I want you to be open and honest, always. What negative habits are you doing now? Maybe not this moment, but before or after, right? So what are you resisting expanding into? I'll repeat that question again. What are you resisting expanding into? It's a powerful question. What are you not letting yourself feel or experience? So the first thing I want you to answer those questions, or identify where the pattern comes up, or see what pops into your head when we say the word happiness. I'm happy, Andy. Good. Do you know how happy you could be? Right. Have you been happier in the past? There's been a moment in your life where you were just so ecstatic about life. Well, are you that way now? Maybe. But I want you to look at what pops up when you fully lean into happiness. Okay? There's no right, there's no wrong, there's no good, there's no bad. All we're doing is looking at what's playing automatically. Okay?
Okay, crew. Okay, let me jump in there. This goes on. It goes on for at least another hour, but I just wanted to give you a little taste of what kind of I do in these presentations or courses that I put on. And I don't do many of them anymore. I really work with private clients and private systems, as I love that one-on-one experience. I love the groups. I love stage. But these courses, well, they're there for you. So head over to andymurphy.online. This specific one isn't available right now, but if you want a top 1% performer, message me. It's not going live quite yet, but it's I can give you a copy of it. The other one you really want to jump into, which is 20 times more in depth, but it is the most complete system on earth, I promise you. It's called the 8-Figure Thinker University. You can get that on andymurphy.online. What else can you get on andymurphy.online? Well, you can go and get your Total Mind Control Handbook. Grab it. It's free. Valued at $27. Should be valued at $1,000. God, it's so badass. And the other thing you can get at andymurphy.online is, well, access to me. It's not available to everyone. You definitely have to apply and fit a specific criteria. But if you are used to being a top high performer and you have dipped in success and you want to reboot psychologically and make sure you expand into the 2.0 version or expand into infinite possibility, and I mean that from you could be running $1 billion business, you could be feeling that intense pressure, or you just know that you're not just quite on your game right now, but you know you must. And the pressure every day to perform is getting too much. My protocols will switch you back on so fast. Whether it's a day you work with me, 2 days, 90 days, or 12 months. I got you covered. So that's it, crew. End of episode 416. Hopefully you enjoyed that, got lots out of it. Remember, write me a review. Apple appreciates it, Spotify appreciates it, all the other platforms appreciate it, and I appreciate it even more. And make sure that you're hanging out with me on social. All the links are in the show descriptions, and that's it. Much love. Keep kicking ass, and I will see you next week. Until then, why don't you smile for me?
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode of the Mindset by Design podcast with your host and NLP expert, Andy Murphy. We'll catch you next time.